Welcome to the screencast tutorial on Google Sheets. Google Sheets, if you're unfamiliar, is an incredibly powerful computing, accounting, organizational program that lives right inside Google Drive. It is the Google equivalent to Microsoft Excel, and it is just an insanely powerful program, and we're just going to be scratching the surface of what Google Sheets can do. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. So here we are in Google Drive, and to open up a new spreadsheet, we go New and select Google Sheets. Okay, the cardinal sin of any Google Drive document is to leave it unnamed, so let's go ahead and give this a proper name. Okay, there we are. Now, let's go ahead and just take a brief moment and get familiar with the layout and some of the tools available to us in Google Sheets. So the first thing you'll notice that there are all these boxes throughout your screen. Each one of these is called a cell. Now, the cells are named according to the column and the row. Okay, so you can see that the vertically running selections are called columns, and those are given an alphabetical ordering, and the horizontal running are rows, and those are numerical. So if I were to click on a cell, that would be D5, and it actually indicates D5 because you can see the shaded column letter and the row number. So there's D5. I'm here in A1. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about what we can do with just the layout of the rows, the columns, and some of these cells. First off, if there's any one of these columns that you want to make wider, all you have to do is hover right over the edge of it, and you see the arrow pop up. You can make a column wider like so. You can do the same for rows. If you wanted to make a sequence of rows or columns wider, you can click and drag and select multiple. By moving one, it'll copy that to the rest. And of course, the same you can do here. Now let's talk about each one of these cells. Now we're going to be entering some text and some numbers in here, but let's just talk about the layout and the format of the cells. If we wanted to change the color of a cell, we come right up here to our toolbar. We're going to stay over here. These are some of our formatting options in our toolbar. So this paint bucket, we can change the fill color. Okay, if we wanted to select multiple cells, again, you just click and drag, and you could change the cell color that way. If you wanted to add some type of border or outline, you can do that using this option here in your toolbar. You can select something like this. If you wanted just the exterior outlined, let's go ahead and clear that. If you wanted just the exterior outlined, you could do something like that. And then furthermore, if you wanted just the interior lines bordered, but in maybe a different format, you can come down here and select maybe like dotted lines and something like that. Okay, one last thing you can do before we move on. If you have a sequence of cells that you want just into one gigantic cell, you can do that. It is the merge cells option. So when you go ahead and select that, you can see that all these cells are now merged. Now, equally important is to know how to remove all of these formatting options as well. So this merge cell, all I have to do is come up here and deselect that, and it'll split all those cells again. Come right up here to get rid of our borders, and it's this option in the bottom right hand corner. And lastly, to get rid of the highlighting, go right up here to reset. Okay, so now that we are familiar with these cells and spreadsheets and exactly what they can do, let's go ahead and start getting some information logged and start calculating, okay? So in a spreadsheet, even though it's a spreadsheet, I always like to start with a title. So I'm going to do that right here in cell A1. So I'm going to call this Mr. Riley's. Okay, Mr. Riley's monthly budget. Now, you can see here that this text takes more space than cell A1 has to provide. So I have a few options here. You can see as of right now, it just spills over into cell B1. But if something were to happen where I were to actually use this, so let's say that for whatever reason I wanted to type the number 0 there, you can see that it actually clips it off. So as it is right now, maybe there's something that we could do to fix this. So the first thing we could do is simply drag the A column over, but you can see what it does to the rest. It makes these columns disproportionate in size, and that drives my OCD just nuts. So that's not what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to come up here and select, I'm going to come right here, this text wrapping option in our toolbar. What we have right now is called overflow, and we discussed the issues with that. We could just clip it so that way it only takes the space that A1 provides, but you can see it actually leaves some of the text missing. It's not gone, it's still there, it's just hidden. So I don't know if that's necessarily a great option either. Of course, we could wrap it and it spills down into the next line, but you can see that's a bit of an issue as well because it makes this row 1 disproportionately larger than the rest. So I think what I'm going to do instead of any of these is I'm going to select these two cells, A1 and B1, and I'm going to go back to this merge cells option, and there it is. So now we can actually make this maybe a different font, Open Sans, that's one of my favorites. Okay, there we are. Okay, now we see that we just barely filled all of A1 and B1, so maybe what I'll do is I'll bring this down to 11, make it a little bit more comfortable in there. Okay, now we are going to be calculating some data here, so we need some base values for our monthly budget, and that's the average number of weeks and the average number of days within each month. And again, this is just the average, so we're going to type right here in A2 and in A3 now take a look here. Look how this A2 just barely overflows into B2, and that's one of those things where, well, maybe this time I will cheat just a little to make it work. Every once in a while you can get away with it. I try to avoid it, but every once in a while you can get away with it. Okay, so for our calculations, we are going to say that there are, on average, 4 weeks in 1 month. Sometimes there's less, sometimes there's, it's not always an even number of weeks, but that's what we're going to go with. And number of days, we're going to say are 30. And again, that's just the most common number of days within each month, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and color code those. I want to make sure that I know I'm calculating correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and color code these. I'm going to select a lighter color. So nothing too drastic that I can't see. If you select some of these bold colors, they get a little loud and sometimes even difficult to read your text. So choose something that's going to be easy to read. Okay, if you would like, you can add some type of border around this. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to add an outline. and maybe some interior borders like so. What is really critical is that these two cells, number of weeks and the number of days, those have standalone numbers in them. They do not have any numbers or any other letters or any other symbols or anything else in it. It's just this one number, 4 and 30. If you have anything other than your cell, than just a number in your cell, the spreadsheet isn't going to know how to do the calculations for you, and that's pretty critical for this assignment. Okay, so let's go ahead and start entering some of this data like I was saying. So I'm going to come down here to cell A5 and I'm going to start a table. So the first thing I'm going to do when I'm starting this table is I'm going to select 3 cells. So I've got A, B, and C5, and I'm going to merge that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to title this table Income. Now you can see that this title is way off on the left hand side, so I'm going to change the alignment. Okay, and there are 3 things that we want to know in this table. The first one is chore. The next one is rate, and the next one is monthly. Okay, the monthly total. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and type in some information really quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, and I'm back, and here's all the things that I do according to my Mad Libs activity that earns me money. Now, just as a quick heads up, these are all in the first paragraph, so all that first paragraph is your income. So when I go through that, I just go through and assess all the things that make me money. So I wash the dishes after dinner. I also have to walk my children. You were supposed to select an animal, but I guess I did. I walked my children. If you know anything about young children, they need to get some exercise outside or they do turn into animals. Put away my tools. I also have to take my tools out 5 times each week. I do a lot of house projects and somehow my tools always get scattered throughout the house. So it seems like I'm always trying to get them back in the garage. My ice cream sales and my 6-foot Lego statues, of course, the ones I make are of Abraham Lincoln. So those are all the things that I do that make me money throughout the month, at least according to this activity. So the next thing I want to do is actually go through and figure out the rate or how much I make for those activities. So I'm going to go ahead and go through and enter those now. Okay, so here we are. We've got all the different things that I do that make me money plus the rate that I get paid to do those things. Now let's take a quick moment here and look at this. These are not formatted as currency. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to select all of these cells that have my numerical values only. Again, those are only numbers. I'm going to come right up here and I'm going to select format as currency, and that now turns it into a monthly, or at least it turns it into a currency. Now before we go any further, let's start actually making this look like a table, okay? So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to select this. I'm going to give this a nice bold outline. Okay, so there's my income. I can, if I wanted to, change my font, make it a little bit bolder so I know what I'm working with here. I can center all 3 of these. These are my subtitles. And what I think I'll do here is I'm going to give that an outline. I'm going to bring that back down. And I think there's one last thing I want to do. Now this time I just want the bottom outlined. And then how about one more step. Let's make all these divided by dotted lines. So I'm going to select all vertical lines and select dotted. There we are. Okay, so now it's starting to look more like a table. Now, at this point, we're ready to start doing some math. Now, one of the things that we should realize is that each one of these is based off of a different length of time. For instance, the dishes, I get paid $1.50 a day. Walking my children, I get a flat rate of $8 a week. Cleaning my tools, that it's a flat rate of $17.20 a week. Ice cream sales, that is $1.60 a day, which is not a whole lot of money. And lastly, the Abraham Lincoln, which is actually just a flat monthly thing. So let's go ahead and note those so we know which kind of calculations we should be doing here. Okay, so I'm going to change my color. So I said that this is a daily payment, so I'm going to change this to blue. See, I believe I selected this one, so I know which one I'm going to be multiplying by. Walking my children, that's a weekly, so I'm going to make that green. Cleaning tools, that is weekly as well. Ice cream sales, that is a daily rate. And the Abe Lincoln, I'm going to leave that blank because I don't need to multiply that at all. Okay, so now here is where the magic of spreadsheets kick in. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to type in equals sum. And sum means multiply, add, subtract, multiply, divide. I want you to do some type of math for me. So I'm going to hit equals sum. I'm going to select this cell. Now, do you see how it already said B7? So I selected B7. The symbol for multiply is the asterisk, which is Shift 8. And I get that star. So multiply by blue and blue. So I'm going to multiply by cell B3. I close my parentheses, and there we are. I get $45 a month for doing the dishes on a nightly basis. Okay, walking my children, I get $8 a week, so I'm going to hit equals sum. Shift 8 by 4, so that's cell B2, and I close that. $32 a month. Let's keep going right down the list. Equals sum multiplied like so. I'm back to a daily rate. Okay, and this one, we don't have to copy that one over at all. We're just going to hit 54.0 and format that as a currency. Okay, so here's all the things that I do to get paid on a monthly basis. So let's figure out how much that actually means. Total. Okay. So here's the cool part. You guys ready? We highlight all of these cells with our monthly totals. We come right up here to our formula bar, hit sum, and there we are. We make $247 a month doing our various activities. Okay, so here's our income. Now let's calculate our expenses. I'm going to set up my same table. So I'm going to merge these cells. I'm going to call this expenses. I'm going to center that. Okay, let's call this activity. Cost. and monthly Okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and enter my activities, and I'll be right back. Back, and I took the time to not only add my expenses, but also go ahead and format it just the same as my other table over here. I can change the font, Open Sans, I think only 12. Okay, so I've got my income, now my expenses. These are all the things that I spend money on. So I like to, on my way home, I like to stop and get avocado toast. It's not just for breakfast, it's delicious all the time. So 4.5 a week on that. $20 a week at my favorite store, which is Home Depot. App purchases, $7.2 a week on that. Daycare, I only wish that daycare was $20 a week. That would be amazing. Okay, and I like to go and I like to build things over the weekend. So I find myself at Rockler, which is a woodworking store, and I've budgeted $2.80 a week there, which I'm pretty sure wouldn't even get me a box of screws. But let's go with it. Okay, so I'm gonna format all this as a currency. Now I did you a favor here. All of these are weekly totals. So let's go ahead and change our color here. There we are, to green. So all of these are going to be the same calculation. We're multiplying each of these by 4. So I'm going to show you a cool trick. Okay, so I'm going to enter my formula just like I did the last time. Equals sum. I'm going to select F7 multiplied times B2, but before I go any further, I'm going to go back an arrow. Oh, there we go. I'm going to come up here to my formula bar. So let's jump. Here we are. I'm going to jump up here to my formula bar. I'm going to add a $sign before the B and the 2, and a $sign there. Now this is a kind of a cool little trick that says, hey, I'm going to do something, but don't forget B2. Just keep B2 in your mind. Don't forget it, spreadsheet. And I hit enter. Now the formula hasn't changed, the calculation hasn't changed, but now I'm going to hone in on this little blue box. Do you see how if you hover over this little blue box right here, I'm going to drag all the way down, and voila, it did all the calculations just like that for me right off the bat. The same thing I can do here. Now when we calculated all this, I came up to the formula bar, but there's actually a different way you can do that. I'm just going to hit equals sum, and I'm going to select all of these, close parentheses, and there you are. So I spend $218 a week on various things. So let's get that back corrected. Okay, now we're down to our last step, okay, and that step is, how do we know if we're ever going to save up for our bucket list, okay? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to come right below this, right about here. I'm going to set up my third table. I'm going to merge that, and I'm going to type in savings. Okay. Now, you know what? Now this time, I think we only need 2 cells, or 2 columns, so we're going to type in savings. We're going to center that. Okay. Now let's start with this. Let's say monthly savings. Okay, how much money do we save each month? So what we're going to do is we're going to go equals sum, and we're going to subtract our income, $247 a month. That is C12. minus, which is right next to the 0, minus my expenses, which is G12, and I close that, and I save $29 a month. Okay, so let's figure out how much that is yearly. So yearly equals sum. Now you can see that it's this equals sum, and whatever cell I select, it's just doing all the math for me. So I'm going to select 29 times, now this time it's not another cell, I'm just going to say 12 for 12 months, and there we go, I saved $357.60 every single year. So if I were to do this, let's say that my bucket list item which is a trip to Norway. Let's say that that cost $2,500 for the plane ticket. Okay, I'm going to format that as a currency. So all I need to do is select time, years, let's go years needed. So I'm going to select this cell, go equals sum, 2,500, divide, which is the slash, it's just next to the period. And I'm going to divide that by my yearly savings. Okay, and we get this really long decimal, so let's get rid of some of those decimals. Okay, let's say 6 point, let's just go ahead and say 7 years it will take me to save up for my plane ticket to Norway. Okay, now we can format this into a table just like we did with the other ones. Go right around like so. Okay, now it's at this point that you say, Mr. Riley, 7 years it'll take you to save up? At $29 a month, you might as well just spend it. There's no point. But 7 years, there's no other way in which I'm going to make it to Norway. So go ahead and take that, even that tiniest amount of money, put it in a piggy bank, put it in a savings account. And someday that money will work for you and multiply, and all of a sudden you'll be buying plane tickets. So those bucket list items, hold on to those, start saving for them now, because 7 years away sounds like a long time, but it is not. Guys, at this point you are done with the spreadsheet activity. Congratulations. Make sure that this item is living in your Global Studies folder. So make sure you move it over there now. Global Studies, move it there, and then go turn it in to the appropriate place. Well done. You made it.